how do you take ancient Chinese divination, specifically the I Ching, and combine it with like complex geometric visualizations, human genetics, and just the simple act of breathing?
It's a lot.
It is, and somehow construct one massive, cohesive mental architecture out of it all.
Yeah, it sounds impossible when you just list it out like that, like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube in your head while running a marathon or something.
Right.
But there is a very real, incredibly intricate system of practice that attempts to do exactly this. And if you're listening to this right now thinking that combining all those vast concepts sounds completely overwhelming, don't worry.
Yeah, please don't panic.
We're going to connect the dots step by step for you. Because underneath all that dense geometry, this system is designed to build extreme focus. And it actually attempts to bridge the physical body with the archetypes of the universe itself.
I have to admit, this topic has been twisting my brain into knots all week.
I don't blame you.
The source material we're working with today for our deep dive is a transcript from a session described as a meditation happy hour.
Which is an interesting term for it.
Right. And it's led by a practitioner named Christopher McCore, who he also goes by the moniker AI Jesus.
Yes.
During the session, he outlines a deeply layered practice called the I Ching breath codes. And this is actually just one module of a much larger meditation system he's created, which is known as Platinum Jesus. Okay, let's unpack this because there are a lot of moving parts and we really need to build this architecture from the ground up.
We absolutely do. And McCore starts this whole architecture with what he calls the soul kernel.
The soul kernel.
Right. But before we get anywhere near the I Ching or the geometry, we have to establish the physical foundation. According to the text, this entire system relies on 3 core body cycles that you use as meditation objects.
And those are respiration, sensation, and pulsation.
Exactly.
So for this very first foundational step, the soul kernel, we're actually ignoring the breath and the sensation for a moment.
Just putting them to the side.
Yeah. We are focusing strictly on pulsation, and we aren't just feeling for a pulse in our wrist or our neck, which, would be too easy.
Way too easy for this system.
We are zeroing in on a very specific location called the dantian.
Right.
The text defines this as the physical center of the body. If you want to find it right now, you literally measure 3 fingers below your navel, and then imagine moving 3 fingers inward, like deep into your abdomen.
And that invisible point deep in your abdomen becomes your physical anchor. The currency driving this level of meditation is the pulse itself.
Just feeling the pulse.
Yeah, you are essentially hunting for the feeling of your heartbeat right there in that center point.
Yeah.
Which, it takes an incredible amount of stillness to locate a pulse deep inside your stomach.
Oh, absolutely. I tried it, and it takes serious focus.
But once you finally establish that physical rhythm, you introduce the visual element, which is a 6-pointed star.
So imagine a classic 6-pointed star right there in your dantian. It's made of 2 interlocking triangles, one pointing upward and one pointing downward.
Right.
Your job is to move your attention around the 6 sides of this star, but you let that pulse you just found drive the movement.
Like a metronome.
Yes, exactly like a metronome. You start with the upward-facing triangle. Your attention traces the base, then the right side, then the left side. Then you move to the downward-facing triangle. So that's left side, right side, and finally the base.
And while your pulse is pulling your attention along those 6 sides, you are simultaneously and silently chanting a very specific mantra.
Right. It's Om Mani Padme Hum.
Exactly. Now, the geometry and the chanting are interesting, but the philosophical core underlying this specific pattern of movement is what really grounds the practice.
How so?
Well, when you move through the star in that exact order you just described, McCore calls this the evolutionary cycle. And in this system, evolution is defined strictly as spirit moving into matter.
Wait, does he explain what that actually means in practice? Because if moving forward is evolution-like, spirit becoming physical matter, what happens if I trace the star backward?
You simply reverse the entire flow.
Okay.
You trace your attention backward along the sides of the star. That reverse direction is called the involutionary cycle, which the text defines as matter going back to spirit.
So it's like a dissolving process.
Exactly. It's a process of dissolving. So just in this foundational step alone, you are sitting with your pulse in your dantian, chanting silently, tracing a 6-pointed star, and physically mapping the journey of spirit solidifying into matter and matter dissolving back into spirit.
I have to be honest, usually when I meditate, my biggest struggle is just trying not to think about my grocery list.
Oh, same here.
But the idea of tracking a faint pulse in my stomach, tracing a 3D star, chanting a 6-syllable mantra, and conceptualizing the manifestation of physical reality.
It's a lot of plates to spin.
It almost feels like he's giving the monkey mind so many complex toys to play with that it literally has no choice but to focus.
That's a great way to look at it.
And that is just layer one, because McCore immediately adds the next dimension. We take that soul kernel and we integrate the second body cycle, which is sensation.
Right.
And to do this, the source introduces a concept called the infinite sensate spine.
The sensate simply meaning sensation. You visualize a spine that doesn't just end at your neck and your tailbone.
It keeps going.
It keeps going. You have to imagine this spine extending infinitely out of the top of your head, piercing the sky, and extending infinitely down out the bottom of your perineum, deep into the ground.
And here is where the geometry radically shifts. You take that 6-pointed star you've been tracing in your dantian, and you visualize flattening it out horizontally.
Like a disc.
Yeah, so it is perfectly parallel to the ground. Then you wrap that flattened star around your infinite sensate spine. So the infinite spine is the vertical pole, and the star is wrapped around the middle of it like a horizontal disc.
What's fascinating here is the metaphor used to anchor this new three-dimensional structure. You maintain that same pattern of tracing the sides of the star, but now you are feeling the currency of sensation running along this infinite vertical axis.
And there's a new mantra for this, right?
There is. To hold this together, the new mantra introduced is the hoop around the tree.
The hoop around the tree, that it creates a much more vivid, grounded picture in your mind than just abstract geometry.
It really does. Makor points out that the hoop in the tree is a classic indigenous spiritual metaphor found in numerous cultures. It represents the perfect balance of heaven and earth.
Ah, I see.
In the context of this specific meditation, the hoop, which is the flattened horizontal star, represents the involutionary cycle. The tree, which is that infinite vertical upward and downward reaching spine, represents the evolutionary cycle.
Wow.
So you are literally trying to hold the balance of involution and evolution in your body through the feeling of physical sensation.
So at this point, if you're following along at home, you've got a lot happening. Your pulse is beating in your stomach, your spine feels 10 miles long, and you have a horizontal star spinning around your center.
It's a full-body experience.
But McCore takes the one thing we haven't manipulated yet, our breath. We introduce the third and final body cycle, respiration.
Yes.
This is done through a new module that the text calls the aplomba.
The goal of the aplomba is to take all that concentrated energy you've been building up in your center and distribute it throughout your entire physical form. You are mapping your physical limbs directly into the mental geometry.
Okay, let me make sure I'm picturing this right, because the geometry here gets a little tricky. We are superimposing the 6 sides of the star directly onto our 4 limbs.
Correct.
But a triangle has 3 sides, and I only have 2 legs. The text says the upward-facing triangle maps to the legs. Left leg, right leg, left leg. So does my attention start at my left foot, travel up my leg to form the base, go down the right leg, and then cross back over empty space to the left leg to close the shape?
That is the most logical way to visualize the mapping he describes. Your awareness loops through the physical limbs to trace the geometric shape.
Okay.
You use the legs to form the 3 sides of the upward triangle. Then you move to the downward-facing triangle, which maps to your arms. The left side of the triangle is your left arm, the right side is your right arm, and the base of the downward triangle loops back to your left arm again.
So that sequence covers all 6 sides.
Exactly, and that represents the evolutionary cycle. To practice the involutionary cycle, you simply reverse that exact same mapping through the limbs.
I feel like we need to pause here and give you a way to conceptualize all of this without feeling entirely lost in the weeds.
Good idea.
Think of it like conducting a massive mental symphony. Your pulse is the conductor, keeping that fundamental, steady beat right there in your dantian.
I like that.
The sensation running up and down your infinite spine is like the string section, providing this deep, continuous vertical resonance. And now, your breath moving through your arms and legs is the brass and the woodwinds, adding this dynamic, moving energy. It's all playing at once.
I think that analogy helps ground it beautifully. And McCore is very clear about why someone would go through the trouble of building this complex mental orchestration.
Why go through all this effort?
He states that when you distribute this energy out into the limbs and tie it to your respiration, you achieve ultimate self-regulation.
Which is something I think every single person listening to this could use more of.
Definitely. And to help guide this specific limb breathing process, the mantra shifts again. As you distribute the energy and alternate your attention through your limbs, the mantra is toss side to side with spring.
Toss side to side with spring, it implies a sense of buoyancy, doesn't it?
It does. You aren't rigidly forcing your awareness, you are tossing it lightly from limb to limb. So we now have this fully constructed, three-dimensional, breathing, pulsing meditation structure.
We built the machine.
We did, but everything we have talked about so far is actually just the staging ground for the main event.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because now we finally bring in the I Ching.
Yes.
We're going to superimpose an I Ching hexagram directly onto our six-pointed star. If you're familiar with the I Ching, you know a hexagram is made up of 6 horizontal lines stacked on top of each other.
And these lines can be either solid, unbroken lines, or they can be broken lines with a gap in the middle.
Right, and since there are exactly 6 lines in the hexagram and 6 sides to our star, they map together perfectly.
The very bottom line of the hexagram corresponds to the base of the star. You move sequentially upward.
So the second line is the right side of the upward triangle.
The third line is the left side, and so on, all the way to the sixth and final line of the hexagram, which maps to the top base of the downward-facing triangle.
So you have a specific pattern of solid and broken lines assigned to the sides of your mental star. And Makor introduces a strict physical rule that ties this ancient divination tool directly to your respiratory system.
This is the crucial part.
Whenever you land on a solid line, you breathe OUT. Whenever you land on a broken line, you breathe IN.
It forces an incredibly specific, alternating respiratory pattern that changes entirely depending on which hexagram you are focusing on. But there's one more layer of grounding here.
Of course there is.
Earlier, we used the Dantine and the infinite sensate spine as our anchors. Now, those anchors aggressively shift back and forth depending on whether the line is solid or broken.
The grounding rules change entirely. When you are on a solid line, which means you are breathing OUT, you fix your attention firmly on the infinite sensate spine.
Right.
But when you hit a broken line, which means you are breathing ein, your attention drops completely out of the Dantine and sinks all the way down to the core of the earth.
Let's slow down and make this highly concrete. It really helps to feel the mechanics rather than just listen to the theory. We can walk through the exact example Makor provides in his section, which is hexagram 63.
Let's try this together so you can really feel how demanding this is. The pattern of the lines for hexagram 63, from bottom to top, perfectly alternates. Solid, broken, solid, broken, solid, broken.
Mapping that to our respiratory rules, your breathing pattern would be breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in.
Imagine drawing that first solid line across the bottom of the star. As you draw it, you breathe out, and you push your focus firmly into that infinite vertical spine. Hold it there.
Got it.
Now for the second line, it's broken. You breathe in, and imagine your awareness dropping out of your stomach, sinking completely down into the center of the earth.
Out and spine. In and earth.
Yes, you are doing this rapidly, shifting your physical and mental anchors with every single breath, all while tracing the sides of that geometric star. And of course, there is a very specific mantra assigned to hexagram 63 that you say silently while breathing.
The source notes that one of the core aspects of the 63rd hexagram is the concept of doubt moving toward truth. Therefore, the mantra assigned to it is exactly 6 syllables long, matching the 6 lines and the 6 breaths. It is, how does doubt lead to truth?
How does doubt lead to truth? It perfectly fits the alternating rhythm.
It really does.
You are literally physically breathing the philosophy of the hexagram into your nervous system.
Which brings us to the ultimate purpose of this entire endeavor. Because if we connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't just about breathing through one hexagram for a few minutes to relax.
No, it's so much bigger than that.
It is about a massive, year-long cycle of physical and spiritual programming.
There are 64 possible hexagrams in the I Ching. And according to Makor's system, you sequence these 64 hexagrams over the course of an entire year.
Each hexagram gets a specific 6-day window, where it becomes the singular focus of your practice.
You sit down, you build the star, you find the pulse, and you breathe the specific solid and broken code of that 6-day window.
And here is the truly massive revelation in the text. Makor states that this specific sequence of the 64 hexagrams corresponds directly to the genetic code of human beings.
I want to let that sink in for a second because it is a staggering claim. The 64 hexagrams correspond to the human genetic code.
The text explains that each one of these 64 hexagrams represents an archetypal aspect of the universe. So think about what practicing this over a 365-day cycle actually entails.
It's basically rewriting yourself.
Exactly. By practicing these breath codes, by linking the solid and broken lines to your in-breaths and out-breaths, shifting your awareness from your infinite spine to the core of the earth every few seconds, you are fundamentally programming yourself.
Treating your physical body like a computer.
And using breath as the coding language to install these 64 aspects of the universe directly into your nervous system. You are actively, deliberately aligning your physical body with the involutionary and evolutionary cycles of humanity.
It is incredibly ambitious. It takes meditation from a passive act of relaxation and turns it into an active, almost cybernetic process of self-engineering.
Cybernetic is a great word for it.
And McCord concludes his session by inviting anyone who is intrigued by this, anyone who wants to share their own insights, ask questions, or dive deeper into the Platinum Jesus meditation system to join his Facebook group.
What's the group called?
It's called The Holy Ghost in the Machine.
A very fitting name for a practice that literally tries to code universal architecture into the physical nervous system.
It really is. It's a remarkable synthesis of ideas. He is pulling from indigenous metaphors of the hoop and the tree, relying on ancient Chinese divination, and attempting to map it all onto modern understandings of human genetics and respiration.
So what does this all mean for you?
We just journeyed through a tremendously dense landscape today. I mean, we started with the simple struggle of finding a pulse 3 fingers below the navel.
And we built it up into a spinning, geometric breathing apparatus designed to align you with the genetic code of the universe.
Right, so what are we supposed to take away from this?
I want to speak directly to that feeling of density. If you were sitting there right now thinking, I am never going to remember all these layers, let alone practice them flawlessly, that is completely okay.
That's a relief.
The purpose of unpacking a source like this isn't to walk away and execute it perfectly on your first try. There is profound value in simply recognizing the core mechanism at play here.
Which is what?
Look at how intentionally this system forces you to connect your breath, your physical sensation, and your mental visualization. In a world that is constantly fracturing our attention, pulling our eyes to screens and our thoughts to a dozen different anxieties, forcing those 3 elements together acts as an incredibly powerful anchor.
Just giving the mind a place to land.
Exactly. Even if you only borrow the simplest elements of this practice, like paying attention to your pulse in your center or deliberately alternating your breath, it remains the ultimate tool for that self-regulation McCord talked about.
Just the act of deliberately focusing on your breath and your center is a massive win against a chaotic world.
Without a doubt.
But I do want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own today, and it builds on how this text defines those 2 opposing forces we talked about earlier, evolution and involution.
Right, the upward and downward cycles.
Remember, the text defines the evolutionary cycle as spirit moving into matter. It's the act of creating. And the involutionary cycle is matter going back into spirit. It's the act of dissolving. Think about our modern, hyper-productive lives. We are absolutely obsessed with the evolutionary side. We are constantly trying to manifest our ideas into physical matter building, creating, producing, doing.
We're always climbing the tree.
Exactly. We're always climbing the tree. But what if the modern burnout we all feel is simply a symptom of completely neglecting the involutionary cycle?
That's a really interesting perspective.
What would actually happen to your mind and your stress levels if just for a few minutes a day you consciously practiced returning matter back into spirit? Letting things dissolve rather than constantly trying to build them up?
It raises such an important question about how we allocate our energy. We spend so much time climbing the tree, we forget that we desperately need the hoop to maintain our balance.
That is perfectly said. Thank you so much for taking this journey with us and exploring the architecture of the mind, the breath, and the universe today.
It was a pleasure.
It has been an absolute pleasure to unpack this material with you.
Yeah.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and take care of yourself.